In the quiet corner of Ohio, far from the noise of cities and the flash of cameras, a weathered garage stood at the edge of town. The Whitmore family, known across the country for tech empires and philanthropic efforts, would have had no reason to be there except their black Escalade had sputtered out on a remote back road. Dana Whitmore, a woman of poise and fortune, stepped out of the SUV with her 9-year-old daughter Lily. Lily, born with a condition that left her legs immobile, sat patiently in her sleek, custom wheelchair. The day was ordinary, until fate rerouted everything. The garage's sign was barely hanging, its paint peeling and its bell rusty. But inside, a young man with grease on his face and sleeves rolled high worked quietly on an old Ford engine. Jake Carson, 33, had never traveled far beyond his hometown. But what he lacked in status, he made up for in skill. When Dana walked in, she was clearly out of place, sharp business attire, diamond watch, high heels clicking against the cracked cement floor. "You the mechanic?" she asked. Jake looked up, wiping his hands. "Sure am. What's the issue?" Her eyes flicked back toward her SUV. As Jake followed her out, he glanced at Lily. The girl had big eyes and a quiet smile that tugged at something in him. He nodded to her. "Hey there." She gave a polite wave. As Jake diagnosed the issue under the Escalade's hood, he noticed the custom wiring on the wheelchair. "That's a sweet rig," he said, motioning toward Lily's chair. Dana glanced up, surprised. "You know wheelchairs?" Jake shrugged. "Know a little about everything." What she didn't know, and what he didn't say, was that Jake had spent years tinkering with mobility systems for kids who couldn't afford anything close to what Lily had. Lily's condition wasn't just physical. It had come with doctors' warnings, specialists' predictions, and a life planned around limitation. Dana had spent millions chasing hope, but now, stranded in a dusty town, her expectations were low. Jake finished. "The car's fixed," but before taking payment, he knelt beside Lily's chair, inspecting its undercarriage. "Mind if I take a closer look?" he asked gently. Dana hesitated, but Lily nodded. "It's okay, Mom." Jake's fingers traced a few worn components. Then he stood and said something unexpected. "I might have something that could help her, not promising anything, but you mind sticking around a bit?" Dana was skeptical. "You're a mechanic." Jake smiled faintly. "And I build things." She exchanged a glance with Lily, who looked more curious than afraid. Inside the back of the garage was a dusty workbench, covered in wires, joints, blueprints, and sketches. He reached under a tarp and slowly revealed what looked like a metallic frame, lightweight, adjustable, lined with soft pads and subtle motors. "I've been building a hybrid mobility system," he said. "Something that responds to the slightest muscle movement." Haven had tested it properly yet, but maybe, Dana interrupted. "You built this alone?" Jake nodded. "I had a sister once. Similar condition. She didn't make it. After she passed, I promised myself I'd try to help others." The weight of his words silenced Dana. She watched as he gently adjusted the exosuit and pulled it over to Lily's chair. "We'd need to be careful," he said. "Won't make her run marathons, but maybe she could stand, maybe take a step." Dana stepped in. "No, that's not safe." But Lily, with her small voice, said, "Please, Mom, just one try." Dana hesitated, then slowly nodded. Jake knelt, his hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but hope. With Dana holding Lily's hand, Jake carefully helped the girl into the suit. It attached at the waist, hugged her thighs and calves, and locked at her ankles. Jake adjusted the motors. "We'll support you. Just lean forward. The suit will feel you." Lily closed her eyes. The room held its breath, then slowly, awkwardly, her legs stiffened. A mechanical whisper hummed through the air. Her knees trembled. Then she rose, 1 inch, then 2. Then she was fully standing. Dana gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Jake kept one hand on her back, steadying her. "That's it. You're standing, Lily." Lily's eyes widened. "Mom, I'm up." Dana collapsed into a chair, tears running down her cheeks. "Oh my God, baby." Jake's hand stayed firmly on Lily's shoulders, until making sure she didn't lose balance. But for a moment, just one, Lily took a step. It was clumsy, shaking, imperfect, but it was hers. Dana broke down, sobbing into her palms. Jake looked down, his greasy fingers still wrapped gently around the support straps. He didn't speak. He knew moments like this didn't need words. The air in the garage felt sacred, like the space between a prayer and a miracle finally answered. Outside, the wind picked up. The town kept moving, unaware of what had just happened in that crumbling garage. Dana stood and walked toward them, embracing her daughter and gripping Jake's forearm. With gratitude so strong, she couldn't form sentences. Jake simply smiled and said, "She's braver than I ever was." Dana looked at him, truly seeing him for the first time, not just a mechanic, but a man who had given her daughter something years of medicine couldn't. "Why haven't I heard of you before?" she asked. Jake looked away. Most folks don't look in places like this. That night, Dana didn't drive away. She stayed. She watched Lily try again, this time taking 2 more steps before falling into Jake's arms. He caught her, smiling gently. "That's progress." Dana pulled out her phone, not to record, but to text her. "Assistant, cancel all meetings. I found something important." Jake refused to accept money. "Don't need it," he said. "Just keep her trying." But Dana wasn't about to walk away from a man who had cracked a problem no elite medical team could. She made a quiet call to a private lab director in Boston. "I want this man's designs supported." By morning, Jake's garage was buzzing, not with customers, but energy. Dana had stayed the night in a nearby motel and returned early. "I want to fund this," she said. "You name it, lab staff, materials, full control stays with you." Jake paused. "Why?" She answered plainly, "Because I saw my daughter walk." He nodded, still unsure what to do with the scale of what was happening. "We'd need real parts. Better motors, more testing." Dana smiled and done, but Jake had one condition. "It stays free for kids who need it. No big companies, no price tag." Dana agreed, shaking his hand. As Lily practiced again that afternoon, more confidently now, Jake adjusted the suit with the focus of a surgeon. Dana stood nearby, watching not just her daughter, but the man who had turned a dusty garage into a sanctuary. There were no titles here, no boardrooms, just care, metal, and grease. When Lily collapsed again, Jake caught her gently. "It's okay. That's how we learn." She nodded, breathing hard but smiling. Dana stepped forward and wrapped her arms around both of them. "You have no idea what you've done," she whispered. Jake didn't respond. He just nodded, eyes full but quiet as ever. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low, Lily sat beside Jake while he soldered new parts. "Why do you help people like me?" she asked softly. He paused. "Because someone should. And because you remind me of my sister, she was funny like you." Lily smiled. "I think she'd be proud of you." Jake didn't say anything, but the spark in his eyes said it all. In one day, the billionaire mother, the broken child, and the humble mechanic had crossed worlds, and none of them would ever be the same. All it took was a broken car and a heart full of tools. Tears welled in Dana's eyes as Lily took another trembling step forward, each one steadier than the last. Jake didn't say a word. He stayed beside her, crouched, and ready to catch her if she stumbled. But Lily didn't fall. Her arms trembled, her knees quivered, but her will was like steel. By the time she reached her mother's arms, the world had changed. Dana wrapped her daughter in a tight embrace, sobbing so hard she couldn't speak. "You walked," she whispered through her tears. The small crowd of bystanders outside the garage stood frozen, unsure whether they'd just seen magic or a miracle. Dana stood slowly, wiping her tears but still shaking. How did you do this?" she asked Jake, staring at the exosuit wrapped around Lily's legs. Jake looked away. I Didn't do it, he said. She did. I just gave her the chance. His voice cracked as he spoke. He turned toward the shop, away from the emotion, his hands still smudged with oil and dust. Dana followed him. No, doctor could give her that, but you did what science and money couldn't. Jake smiled faintly, his eyes glistening. Sometimes machines just need someone to listen. By that evening, word had spread across town like wildfire. A few cell phone videos hit social media, and within hours, the small Ohio garage was lit up by camera flashes. News vans. Reporters surrounded Jake, asking for interviews, pushing microphones at his face, but he kept refusing. It's not about me, he said. It's about Lily. Dana stood beside him, now composed but deeply moved. She offered him a blank check. Name your price, she whispered. Whatever you want. Jake looked stunned. Put it into the kids like her, he replied. I don't want money, I want movement. Dana couldn't believe his response. In her world of boardrooms, contracts, and ambition, she'd never met someone like Jake. He could have bought anything, yet he wanted nothing. Instead, he went back into the garage and began sketching. As reporters begged for more footage, he ignored them and welded parts late into the night. Dana stood quietly at the doorway and watched. There was genius in his movements, though he never called himself one. A week later, she returned. Not with a check, but with lawyers, architects, and blueprints. She was building something far bigger than money could buy. A future. The announcement stunned everyone. Dana Whitmore, billionaire entrepreneur and CEO, was launching a national foundation in Jake's name, the Green Initiative. It'll be for kids like Lily, she said at the press conference. Not just equipment, but hope, dignity, innovation that listens. Jake hated the spotlight, but she made him promise to be there. With his name on the banner behind her, Jake stepped forward, his voice shy. I'm no hero, he said. I just fixed what others gave up on. 1,000 cameras clicked. Dana took his hand and whispered, You don't have to be a hero, you just have to care. Jake was flown to Boston, where Dana had secured a lab inside one of the most advanced tech campuses in the country. At first, Jake felt out of place engineers with PhDs, suits with lanyards, and machines he couldn't pronounce. But the moment he touched a toolbox, the space changed. He wasn't there to theorize, he was there to build. Within weeks, the lab felt like home. He brought in old tools from his garage, hung Lily's first exosuit on the wall, and began drafting prototypes. The first child. He helped walk after Lily was a boy named Trey from Alabama. Trey had lost the use of his legs after a car crash and hadn't stood since he was 6. Jake flew down himself, worked in a dusty backyard for 3 days, and returned with a modified frame. Dana watched on a video call as Trey rose shakily and grinned. His father wept, clutching Jake like a brother. The local mayor gave him a medal. Jake tried to give it back. Just give me another kid to help, he said. Dana smiled through the screen, knowing they'd built something unstoppable, something that didn't shine with fame, but with meaning. Each month, Jake's reach grew. With Dana funding every step, they opened labs in Detroit, Austin, and Seattle. Jake never liked interviews, so Dana became the voice of the mission. She never mentioned the money, only the moments. When a child takes their first step, she once said on CNN, the whole world should stand still. Jake remained in the background, but his machines spoke louder than any words could. Doctors, once skeptical, began studying his designs. Engineers rewrote textbooks to explain his intuition. Jake simply called it listening to the metal. He never drew blueprints, he felt them. Lily became his quiet muse. Every week, she sent him drawings, some with rockets, some with wheels, some with wings. Jake pinned them all across the lab. She's not done walking, he'd tell his team. She's ready to fly. Dana visited often, not as a billionaire, but as Lily's mom. She brought cookies, stories, and once, a tiny pair of golden shoes for the wall. "For the first girl you helped stand," she said. Jake placed them beside the exosuit and touched them gently. "She did all the work," he whispered, but in his heart he knew he'd changed everything. At the grand opening of the Green Mobility Institute, Jake tried to avoid the stage, but Dana insisted. "Just tell them why you do it," she said. Nervously, he walked up, adjusted the mic, and looked at the crowd. "I grew up in silence," he began. "Machines were the only ones that spoke back. I never fixed engines, I listened to them. When I saw Lily, I realized no one had been listening to her legs, so I gave them a voice." The room fell silent. Some cried, others clapped. Jake just stepped down and went straight back to work. In less than a year, over 600 children had stood, walked, or danced with Jake's devices. His methods weren't always traditional, but they worked. More importantly, he cared. Each device was named after the child it helped. "These aren't products," he said. "They're promises." Dana stood by him at every conference, gala, and fundraiser, not as a sponsor, but as a mother. The world began to see Jake not as a mechanic, but as a quiet revolutionary, a man who built with heart, not hubris, a man who never forgot where he started, a dusty garage and a girl named Lily. Despite all the accolades, Jake still returned to Ohio once a month. The garage was still his. He kept it open for small repairs, local kids' bikes, and dusty engines that needed love. Lily visited sometimes, now taller and stronger, with dreams of building her own machines. "You started something in me," she once told Jake. "Now I want to help others walk too." Jake chuckled, handing her a wrench. "Then you better start listening." They laughed, the kind of laugh only shared by those who once stood on the edge of something impossible and stepped forward anyway. At a black-tie charity gala hosted in New York, surrounded by celebrities and CEOs, Dana took the stage to honor Jake. She held the microphone with grace, but her voice cracked as she began. "My daughter's legs were silent until he made them speak. Jake didn't fix a machine, he fixed a future." The crowd gave a standing ovation as Jake stood awkwardly, his suit barely fitting, trying not to cry. Dana stepped down and whispered, "You know what you did, right?" Jake looked toward Lily, twirling on the dance floor, and smiled. "I just believed in something others couldn't see." One evening, Jake stood alone in the lab, hands resting on the original exosuit. He'd cleaned it, preserved it, but never changed it. It was a symbol of a beginning raw, unpolished, but full of courage. As he looked around, the walls were lined with photos of children walking, running, laughing. Each photo had a date. Each date marked a miracle. Dana walked in quietly and said, "You know, every one of those stories started with you." Jake shook his head. "They started with someone giving up. I just didn't." She stepped beside him, touched the frame, and said, "Thank God you didn't." Later that year, Time magazine named Jake one of the 100 most influential people in the world. He almost declined the feature, but Dana convinced him to accept. The cover photo was not of Jake, but of Lily, walking through a field, arms stretched, hair flying in the wind. The caption read, "The steps that changed everything." Jake smiled when he saw it. "That's the real story," he said. "Not me, her." He framed the cover and hung it in the garage, right beside the engine that started it all. It reminded him of the one truth he never forgot. The story of Jake and Lily became part of textbooks, TED Talks, and classrooms. But for Jake, the world never felt different. He still wore overalls, still used the same wrench, still smiled when engines purred. The only thing that changed was the number of lives touched by his hands. And Dana, once a driven corporate queen, now spent her days fundraising for the foundation, hugging kids, and thanking mechanics like Jake everywhere. She often said, "You don't need to change the world. Just change one life and the rest will follow." Jake believed that, because once one little girl changed his. One morning, Lily, now 10, stood in front of her school, speaking to classmates. When someone helps you walk, she said, you start dreaming about flying. Her voice was strong, clear, proud. Jake and Dana watched from the crowd, tears in their eyes. That evening, Lily built her first prototype, a hover frame made from scrap and sketches. Jake smiled and helped her weld. Looks like it runs on dreams, he joked. Lily nodded. Then we better dream bigger. And in that moment, in a lab built, from faith, sweat, and greasy hands, a new chapter began, one that would lift even more hearts higher.